Welcome back to the Adrenal Fatigue Podcast. This is Angela here, and I'm here with my co-host, Danielle. And today we are talking about common hormonal imbalance that plagues many of you out there, estrogen dominance. Whether you know you are experiencing estrogen dominance or suspect that you are, it's important to understand it because it can be controlled by a few simple changes to your lifestyle. And estrogen dominance is not a life sentence, but merely a bump in the road on your hormonal balance journey. And we're going to talk all about it today. Danielle's here to break it all down, what estrogen dominance is, when it happens, symptoms, and what you can start doing for it. Welcome, Danielle.
Thanks, Angela. I love that we're having this conversation today. I feel like there is a lot of overwhelm and confusion around estrogen dominance and what that actually is. And a lot of our burnt out adrenal fatigue community struggles with this or has a lot of questions around this. So let's clear the air around estrogen dominance today.
Super excited as well. Okay, so let's just break it down and start really simply with what is estrogen.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. So estrogen, often considered a major sex hormone, but it's actually a group of hormones, and they really work in triggering the development of sex characteristics during puberty. So that could be your breasts, pubic hair, that sort of thing, along with the reproductive system regulation that we see throughout adulthood. But it's not just sexual. It also plays a role in cholesterol levels, bone formation, collagen content, so nice, plump, healthy skin, and also even plays a role in thyroid health and thyroid hormone balance. For men, we also see that for men, it assists with developing sperm. It affects prostate health and libido as well. So it touches a lot of different things.
Right, and whether it's you have abundance of it or not enough, right? That's going to play into all the different symptoms that you're having. So we're going to talk all about that, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's important to remember that estrogen naturally fluctuates, not only through our monthly cycles, but through our life as well. So in our monthly cycles, we'll see it rise and fall with our menstrual cycle, depending on what that looks like. And in some cases, we'll see issues along the way with the menstrual cycle because of our estrogen levels. Or other sex hormones like progesterone, which we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail soon. So when we move into menopause, estrogen naturally is lower. And so depending on the state of your adrenals and your hormone health moving into that season of your life, depending on how low that estrogen actually drops can really affect the symptoms that you're experiencing through menopause as well. So it's important.
It is. Okay, so I'm really glad we're talking about this. So, but there's something we want to touch on too called xenoestrogen, right? So it mimics behavior. So can you talk a little bit about that before we go any further?
I'm glad you brought that up, Angela, because as estrogen fluctuates, as I was saying, through our monthly cycles, through the different seasons of life, we also get exposed to estrogen environmentally. So this is where xenoestrogens come to the conversation. And essentially what these are is chemicals that mimic the behaviors of estrogens, and they can actually block or bind our hormone receptors. And that leads to issues with this really delicate balance of hormones in the body. So it's almost like it's taking place of estrogen, tricking your body or not allowing your body to get rid of it as effectively. So you start building it up naturally because our body is actually making more and not effectively getting rid of it.
Yeah. Okay. Which we'll talk about why the body isn't getting rid of it, I think, a little bit later. But interesting. So the body doesn't really know the difference between a xenoestrogen and regular estrogen.
Yeah. So essentially it's tricking your body.
Yeah. Wow.
Because this can be found in food, beauty products, cleaning products, plastic containers, even like receipts that you get when you're shopping at the grocery store and such, pesticides, clothes, the birth control pill, and just throughout our environment. So you can see when you have a lot of exposure to these xenoestrogens, plus maybe a lot of stress on the side, you can see how it can kind of form this like snowballing effect of just factors working against you to make it more stress on the body when it comes to effectively knowing like what's these xenoestrogens, what are the real estrogens, and like the delicate balance gets thrown off and we run into issues.
Yeah, and it brings up like why people have so many symptoms, why estrogen dominance is becoming so prevalent. And there are so many things in our environment now, right, that weren't there decades ago, right, or back in the day where that are disrupting this process. And so, yeah, I think it's really important that we bring this up and talk about this. So Thank you for bringing in the xenoestrogens to the conversation. So what is estrogen dominance?
So clinically, estrogen dominance would be when estrogen is high, right? Estrogen dominant, we're thinking dominant, just high estrogen. But I do feel like estrogen dominance as a term gets a bit of a bad rep because it's not always what it seems. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, you're going to get the classic situation where your estrogen is actually just really high. And this could be in the case where you've had a lot of these xenoestrogen exposures. Maybe you have something else going on with your sex hormones that it's actually just high. But there's a lot of situations because the balance between your hormones is so delicate. We keep saying that it's so delicate, but so important relative to one another. What we find is oftentimes people's estrogen levels might be fine, but their progesterone levels are really low. This is really common in stress situations. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see what I'm doing with my hands right now. But basically I have like two levels, right? And estrogen's above, progesterone's below. And basically the further progesterone goes down, you see the wider the gap between your estrogen and progesterone. Not that it necessarily looks like this, but just to show. So the wider the gap between progesterone and estrogen, then the more these symptoms are going to present. So it's not always the case that your progesterone is normal and your estrogen is high, which is often what estrogen dominance kind of alludes to.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes your estrogen might be totally normal and it's just low progesterone, but we still have that gap. And so your symptoms are going to present as estrogen dominance. And other times, maybe it's true, like progesterone is low and estrogen is high. You have an even bigger gap between the two hormones, and those symptoms are even more exacerbated. So you can see there's
Yeah.
these different scenarios where you really want to have clarity as to what's going on with the big picture with the actual hormones instead of guessing and throwing a supplement into the mix to lower estrogen because you're
Yes.
assuming based on your symptoms you're estrogen dominant, but is that really the root issue, or is there something else that's contributing to those symptoms that needs to be addressed, like the stress?
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay, so I know we're going to talk more about how to get the best clarity, right? What that looks like, especially when you're talking a little bit more with functional medicine versus conventional medicine, how we can help you get the clarity that you need so that you're not just, again, throwing a supplement at it. So we'll talk about that in a moment, but I want to talk about, you mentioned all the symptoms, right? The signs of estrogen dominance. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So these can be frustrating and they can seem really common. This is why it's easy to just assume it's estrogen dominance. And you'll see what I mean when I list off some of these symptoms. So weight gain, mood swings, hair loss, painful periods and PMS, irregular or heavy periods, water retention, breast swelling and tenderness, headaches, migraines, fibrocystic breast changes. So
Mhm.
these are common symptoms, especially in the adrenal fatigue realm, where people are already having a lot of stress and a lot of menstrual cycle irregularities. And it's easy to want to just throw a birth control pill on these hormonal issues to help regulate things. But that's
Mhm.
not always the answer. The birth control pill often contains synthetic estrogen, which can make matters worse. It's not really addressing the root issue at hand.
Yes, which is what we're all about here, is
Yeah.
addressing the root, right? And
Yeah.
they can definitely, birth control has long-term um, effects as well. Um, okay, good. So, and you talked about all those symptoms. I think it's so interesting because I just want to bring to that point of just that idea of PMS, right? It's so common, but we like to say like it's not just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal, right?
Yeah.
So these things are being exacerbated and they're happening so much, and so many women experience them every single month. But do we need to be, right? Or are we just not getting enough information? Are we just not, getting the clarity, and are we getting the information we need, right, to be proactive about solving it? Because we know, and we see this with our clients, there's so much you can do to balance your hormones, from which we're going to talk about in a little bit, with getting clarity about your hormones, what they're actually doing, and certain tests that can do that really clearly, as well as working with the liver and the gut, all these things that we're going to talk about. But there's so much you can do. So I guess all of that to say that it's when you have the clarity, and there is so many more answers we can how we can support our clients and how people do this in functional medicine to alleviate a lot of these symptoms so you don't have to deal with PMS every single month. It's totally possible.
Yeah, exactly. And oftentimes what we see when we do testing here at the Adrenal Recovery Collective with our clients who have a lot of really frustrating premenstrual symptoms, we see those fluctuations. It's often something swinging a little too high or too low, or vice versa as the cycle dips and flows. So when there is imbalance there, or when there's imbalance between the two, this is when the symptoms really get difficult. But yeah, like you said, there's so much that you can do. And even just starting with the foundations that we teach in the Fatigue to Fabulous program, our monthly adrenal recovery and hormone balancing program, those foundations are supportive no matter what's happening with your hormones, which is a really beautiful thing because everyone can start there. And there's so much power in those little changes that you make day to day in your lifestyle.
Definitely. Yeah. So many of our clients have just such a dress, even just in the first month of working through the program, have just amazing wins because of just cleaning up things there. And so that's really, yeah, it's great to talk about this and how we can start seeing a difference in some of these symptoms. So, okay, cool. So, what is said to cause estrogen dominance?
Well, stress is
What's
a
at the
big one.
root?
Yeah, it could be stress. That balance between progesterone and estrogen is so important in the way that your symptoms show up. So when we have a lot of stress, progesterone specifically is very susceptible to our stress and can easily get lowered. And when progesterone's getting pushed down, and then maybe we have other factors creeping in that are really affecting our estrogen, like gut health, like our liver health. Like those irregular periods, like exposure to things in the environment, such as those xenoestrogens, that can contribute to these symptoms of estrogen dominance.
Hmm. Cool. Okay, so should we talk about the testing a little bit? And like, should you be tested if you've already gotten a hormone panel from your general practitioner? Is that good enough? What's next?
Yeah, that's a great question. Oftentimes, depending on when you get your blood drawn, just like remembering when you are looking at your blood, you're looking at a moment in time, and it's often just a quick snapshot of what's happening in that moment. And remembering these hormones are ebbing and flowing throughout the cycle, even throughout the time of day, right? And what's going on a given day. And those factors leading around to that blood test, like it can be easily influenced, but you will get a good picture of what's actually going on. But you can get a much larger picture when you do like more comprehensive hormone testing. We love the Dutch test for this. It actually is a dried urine test. We ship them all over the world. You pee on these little test strips, you let them dry, you send them back. And because the test is done at several different points throughout the day, and in some cases, you can actually do the test every single day of your cycle, like mapping your cycle to see exactly what's going on with your hormones throughout your cycle for those who are really struggling and really want answers to like that clear big picture. But what you get from that is a picture generally over a 24-hour period of how your sex and stress hormones look. So we'll see what your sleep wake cycle looks like. We'll see your progesterone, your estrogen at a really specific time in your cycle. And then we can see what in terms of estrogen, we can see which way it's actually methylating and detoxing. And what's cool about this, it's really empowering, is because we can actually tell, is it going down a more carcinogenic pathway, which could lead to hormonal cancers like breast cancer, ovarian cancer. So you can actually, not to say that it will present that way, but you can see if it tends to go more that way. There's simple lifestyle things that you can do to push it down the healthier pathways, which is really cool and really empowering information. And it allows you to get really specific so that you can streamline, especially to our fatigued community, you can streamline the things that you choose to do day to day to bring things back into a nice balance. And that clarity around what's actually causing the estrogen dominance is huge. I know a lot of you have probably heard my story, but I was basically addressing things the wrong way based on my symptoms. And when I did testing, I realized like everything was flatlined across the board. I didn't need the DIM or the I3C to help me detox estrogen more. I actually needed to bolster all my hormones up because I was so depleted. right? So testing was something that I'm clearly very passionate about because I see how empowering it can be and how it can just streamline you forward. And in my case, like I set myself back with expensive supplements focusing on the wrong thing. So this really gives you freedom and confidence and clarity in what you need to do to move forward to get rid of these symptoms once and for all.
Yeah.
So I do think it's worth it, especially
Yeah.
if you've struggled for a while. I mean, the foundations are always there, but if you really want that clarity and it's available to you, definitely.
Right. I love how the clarity that gives you. And like you mentioned, when you talk about the dominance, if we're not being able to eliminate, right, the estrogen properly because of liver pathways or gut health, right, that's something else that is important to understand. And then we can start addressing the gut, which is what we do in our program, and really making sure if you're not regular, if you're not going once a day, which you should be, right, then you're probably not releasing enough. So really addressing the right, like you're saying, just targeting where the root cause is so you can really address that head on and actually get results and actually see the shift happening. So good.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, awesome. So I'm excited because Danielle is going to walk you all through a 5-step plan of action. So we want to help you get control of this. And so she is going to lay out this 5-step plan for you. So can you walk us through that, Danielle?
Yeah. And what I love about this plan is these are little things. You don't necessarily need to do all of the things, but pick an area that resonates with you now and just start integrating some of these changes. So number one, reduce stress. And this is huge. That progesterone level, having a healthy progesterone level is so important. So addressing emotional stress, physical stress. This includes if you have excess weight on the body, because estrogen can be stored in your fat cells. So fat cells have a lot of a specific enzyme called aromatase, which is an enzyme that helps make estrogen. So the more body fat you have, the more estrogen your body is kind of wanting to produce. So I'm categorizing the excess body weight as a physical stress. But the emotional stress, and Angela, you might want to add a little tidbit. This is really your realm where you support our clients within Fatigue to Fabulous in this regard. But dealing with your stress and the way that you manage it day to day is of utmost importance.
Yes, a lot of us have lots of tendencies and patterns around how we receive the world around us, basically our nervous system, how we react to the world around us. And those are things that we have to also look at when we're looking at stress or any types of conditions that can come from a stress imbalance, right? So stress management is key. And I love helping my clients with this, really come up with creating new patterns and new ways of even just reacting to stress and coping strategies for that. So yeah, a big part of this, and it's easy to say like, oh, manage your stress, but it is very, very important in balancing your hormones naturally. So, yep.
It's many podcast episodes in itself, but we
Yes,
do
it
have a
is.
lot of other episodes that will help you on that journey. The next point is nutrition. And with nutrition, even just starting to move more organic. And if I know like the cost of food is going up, if you can check out the environmental working groups, Dirty Dozen and Clean 15, that gives you a really nice breakdown of the dirtiest foods, which ones are most worthwhile to buy organic and which ones you can kind of get away going more conventional. But if you're going, if you are able to opt for organic, that is going to be supportive. Incorporating even just a serving of cruciferous veggies a day. That could be like broccoli sprouts, kale, cabbage. Foods like this really are supportive in helping your body detox estrogen more effectively. And also being mindful of how much caffeine you're having. The correlation between caffeine and estrogen specifically is there. And we see this a lot with the symptom of like fibrocystic breasts. So if you are a big coffee lover and having several cups a day, even just swapping one of those cups for something like a green tea could be a really nice supportive place to start.
Totally. That sounds great and manageable.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And then from there, so we've got reduced stress, nutrition, liver and gut support, which is also going to be supported by the first two. So they all kind of like play on each other. But making sure that you're eating quality protein, taking a good quality probiotic, supporting your digestion with things like a digestive enzyme if you need to. If you're having a lot of gut issues, getting support from a practitioner would be advised. But another big thing you can do when it comes to gut health is just making sure that you are eliminating daily. This is a huge way that our body actually gets rid of excess hormones, specifically estrogen. So, shooting for around 25 grams of fiber a day. And you can do this by just ensuring that you're eating lots of fruits and veggies, avocados, berries, oatmeal, almond, broccoli. Again, with those cruciferous veggies, it's going to be supportive. But sometimes adding in, if you have been a little backed up, a nice fiber supplement to just help ensure that things are moving can be a nice addition as well.
Awesome.
From there, we can't not talk about sleep. This is huge and something that is just so restorative and important for healthy hormones. So aiming for at least 7 hours a night. Um, and we have a ton of support and resources through other podcasts and on our blog about and our YouTube channel about sleep. So I'm not going to go into that too much right now for the sake of time, but really dialing in things with your sleep, and know that as your sleep improves, your hormones are going to improve as well. And then number 5, work with a practitioner. And this is kind of what we were chatting about before when we were talking about the importance of getting that clarity, especially if you've been doing a lot of guessing, especially if you've been struggling for a while, trying to conceive for a while. If you've really been struggling with these PMS symptoms and struggle through your monthly symptoms or your monthly cycle month after month, it's time to get clarity and dial things in so that you can really support from the root and get
Yeah,
results ASAP.
I love it. And why we say that is, to test, don't guess, because you will eventually spend a lot of money, trying to figure it out. Or like you said earlier, you mentioned DIM in particular, but taking supplements that your body actually doesn't need, right? So you get the extreme clarity from these types of tests that are out there. It's so great that these tests are available, that we can get the clarity that we can get now. So yeah, great. I love those 5 tips. It's a great plan of action, and we hope that that supports you.
And now a quick word from our episode sponsor, the Fatigue to Fabulous program.
If you've been struggling with getting your energy back, we want you to know that affordable support is available in our Fatigue to Fabulous membership program. We invite you to finally balance your hormones, pinpoint the underlying root issues behind your symptoms, rewire your nervous system, and dial in your nutrition, supplements, and so much more via our online hub. You will also get access to live coaching from integrative experts and the support of our amazing recovery community. If you're ready to take the next step, come join us in the Fatigue to Fabulous monthly membership, where you'll get instant access to a complete recovery system. If you are ready, you can find the link in the show notes or visit www.theadrenalrecoverycollective.com and click the pink button to get your full recovery system so you can start getting the results you want today.
It's tricky because the symptoms of estrogen dominance look like so many other things. Like in my case, I didn't know it was adrenal fatigue. And at the time, this was several years ago, there wasn't as much information about it as there is now. So it was really easy to Google my symptoms and assume it was estrogen dominance, which led me down this path of trying to reduce my androgens, reduce my estrogen, and putting all my efforts towards that. Like I didn't even really put it together that my stress was so full-heartedly at the backbone of what was going on with my imbalanced hormones. And I think that this could be the case for a lot of people as well. We're not really realizing what an impact our stressful lifestyle is having on our sex hormones. And I think moreover too, with the rampant amount of people who have been on the birth control, and this is part of my story as well, you go on the birth control pill for all these years and you come off and you're expecting to, start a family right away. And this is the story of so many of my clients. And you're discovering in this time that your hormones, like there's work that needs to be done and things are out of whack. And when you went on the pill all these years ago, it was kind of more masking an issue that was always kind of there and just you learned to live with it, and the pill masked the symptoms. So you became comfortable living with it. But then when you go off of the pill, things are thrown even more out of whack, and you're forced to really address it head on. And it's uncomfortable now because the symptoms are a lot more prominent.
Yeah. So fertility is a big time where, we start to want answers. We start to, need to have the clarity. And so this is a great time, right, to get the testing if you're looking to conceive. Menopause is also a time where women are coming to us, because the symptoms that they've been having, maybe they've been sort of there in the background, but they're getting more exacerbated. And so we just encourage you to seek support, ask for help if you need it. That's what our team is here for. And Danielle, is there any last words you want to say before we conclude for today?
Yeah. And I do feel like we just kind of quickly got down and dirty with estrogen today, which is fun. But I don't want anybody to feel really overwhelmed by this. And Googling the symptoms can make it feel scary and just like there's so much that you could do. And now you're like, oh, but I need to get testing. Like, don't let it overwhelm you. Start with the foundations. The 5 steps that we went through today are really the foundations. And we teach on these foundations even more within the Fatigue to Fabulous program. If you do need a clear roadmap, we've got meal plans, supplement plans, regular coaching where you can ask all the questions that you have around this topic and get support from coaches, mindfulness coaching. Like, we have it all there for you if you really do need a place to start. And then if you want to do something like testing and take things to the next level, we have that in the program there for you as well. So just get support and know that you are fully capable of bringing these hormones back into balance, and just start with these simple things. Pick what resonates with you today and go get them. And if you need support, we're here.
Yes, and also know that our team of practitioners also includes functional medicine practitioners and integrative doctors that really can support you with the testing, like we mentioned earlier, getting the testing and then analyzing the test, because the Dutch test is very detailed 17-page documented results. So you want to get that analyzed by someone who is reading these tests every single day and understands intricacies of all of it and different components that might be on there as well, besides just hormonal imbalance, other things that you might be dealing with. They deal with these complex cases all the time. So we definitely can support you in that. If you're looking for help, we are here for you. Thank you so much, Danielle, for breaking it all down. We should definitely do an episode 2 or part 2 to this podcast and go even deeper. Maybe we can bring on one of our doctors too.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks for starting this conversation, Angela.
Thank you so much for your wisdom, Danielle. All right. Take care, everyone.